Hello, Drake Hawkins, Musically Optimistic here, and today I'm going to be adding another entry in my discography ranked series by ranking Post Malone's discography from worst to best. Now, if you don't know it because you either just came onto this planet or have been living in a hole for like 80 years or from like a country that doesn't listen to fucking white boy pop music, then let me be the first to tell you that Post Malone is one of the best-selling artists of modern times, if not all time, with 8 diamond certified singles as of recording, having put out an entire EP with just those songs and Chemical at the end because he was promoting his album at the time, and with his new album Austin having dropped this year, he finally has 5 albums under his belt that I can rank from worst to best because I tried to keep it to be 5 album minimum. And so yeah, let's just go ahead at number 5, bottom of the list. In my opinion, his worst album so far is his 2016 debut, Stoney. This was essentially an attempt from him and his label to push out a record soon after the viral success of his big breakout hit, White Iverson. And honestly, yeah, it kind of shows all over the place. Don't get me wrong, there are fantastic tracks on here like Big Lie, Deja Vu, White Iverson, I Fall Apart, but for the most part, a lot of this record just feels so loose and unformed. You can tell this was definitely before Post Malone had his own voice down and had his style and whole energy and everything, because even basic things like melodies and catchiness is not entirely here. Like, for example, No Option feels like a song that Post Malone would go on to make later on in his career, but with him not having the tools or the skill or the relative inexperience that he had at that point, it just came out so unformed and kind of grating. And even on tracks like I Fall Apart and White Iverson, 2 of his biggest singles ever, I feel like the mixes are too empty and hollow for me to fully enjoy them to the degree that I would love to. Now, when I first listened to this album, I listened to the deluxe version on CD, so I had this ranked even lower than I would rank it now that I know that the bonus tracks that are on the deluxe are actually the worst on the album. Track 15, Leave, terrible. Fucking god-awful vocals on these. The drums hit terribly. This is one of the worst guitar ballads I think I may have ever heard. Hit This Hard is a weird one. I feel like it's very experimental and very, you're not gonna hear another Post Malone song like this. It is so weird, and I can't tell if I love it or fucking hate it because the juxtaposition of the different sections is just so weird and off-putting. Track 17, Money Made Me Do It, is actually a track from his August 26th mixtape, which I liked when I first heard it, and I still pretty much like it now. It's an upbeat, fun track with a nice 2 Chainz feature. And then the closing track of this deluxe version, Feeling Whitney, one of his nicer early guitar ballads, but because of what he would do later on in his career, I wouldn't go back to this all that much. Same with Yours Truly, Austin Post, the closing of the standard edition of this. Not really essential listening because he has much better stuff later on. Anyway, this is the only Post Malone album that I'd say I'm pretty mixed on. The rest of them I fairly like. And so at number 4 we have his 2018 sophomore record, Beer, Bongs, and Bentleys. Now, this is definitely the placement that I could see having the most pushback on this video, but because of his discography being so consistent and everything just... I like pretty much most of everything he's done. Ask me a different day, the list will probably be different. But for the sake of ranking, this is my 4th favorite album, my 2nd least favorite. The starting 3-track run of Paranoid, Spoil My Night, and Rich and Sad are really heartfelt, just outright bangers. But then from here, the album becomes a mixed bag, with Zack and Codeine and Taking Shots being like some of my least favorite on the record. And pretty much the rest of the album follows the structure of it having great songs, and then mediocre songs, and then fantastic, great career-defining songs, and then shit that I don't even remember what it sounds like the second it turns off. Yes, Rockstar's on this album. Better Now's on this album. Over Now's on this album. So many great tracks on this album, but like there's also shit that I just don't remember. Ball For Me featuring Nicki Minaj. Other Side. Same Bitches featuring G-Eazy and YG. I don't remember what these songs sound like, and I've listened to this album front to back more than a handful of times. Compared to Stoney though, this is a great achievement in songwriting and catchiness, but overall it's just more of a mixed bag than I'd like it to be, and so that's why it's at this number 4 spot. And beating it out at the number 3 spot is This Is Like a Private Plane Upon My Rain. This is like the first time. His 2022 record, 12 Carat Toothache. Pretty much all the discourse online surrounding this record from all groups of people is that it's a terrible album. But I have to fucking disagree. This isn't like a masterpiece or anything. There are definitely lowlights like the track Insane. Him trying to fit a mindless trap banger in between a bunch of these more down-tempo, emotional, heartfelt tunes doesn't make any sense, and it's a really jarring spot in the track list, along with the lyrics just kind of being fucking terrible. And on Cooped Up, Roddy takes a little bit to actually get his verse started, and that can really drag down the momentum of the song and really make it feel like it's going much longer than it actually is. Like, shortly after the album released, Post Malone dropped a remix of this song that is like 10 times better than the actual song itself, and I would definitely recommend checking out that version. However, the rest of this album is pretty damn good. Like, you have the 4-minute intro, Reputation, where it's just Post Malone over piano, and it's one of the most heartfelt, introspective songs that he's written. And that trend continues further into Lemon Tree being pretty much a country song, a Post Malone country song. Wrapped Around Your Finger is one of my favorites here, with its lush string arrangements, and especially its last chorus, with the way that the strings just build up into it, feels so euphoric and just a shot of pure bliss. I like the 2-track run of I Like You, a happier song, and I Cannot Be, a sadder song, as both of the features do a great job, and I feel like they really complement each other really well. Love Hate Letter to Alcohol with the Fleet Foxes is a great, just heart-wrenching song about addiction and overcoming that and the negative things that can come with that. Wasting Angels with the Kid Laroi is one that I can see being a bit of a contentious one. I like its more downtrodden and just simple stripped back instrumentation, especially with the way that it goes out during the outro and comes back with these booming, chanting choir vocals that just completely engulf the listener and just drown the whole experience and this whole... It's like ecstasy, but like the feeling, not the drug. Following that is the most downtrodden track on the album, Euthanasia. I really love this one. I feel like it is so masterfully produced, performed, written, and I feel like having this next to Wasting Angels really helps to illustrate how quick those emotions can shift from more euphoric ones to just straight depression, suicidal angst, and it's brilliant in my opinion. Waiting for a Miracle feels like the actual end to the record, with it being so downtrodden and like hopeless in every way. After that, we get One Right Now and a demo version of Euthanasia, which I feel like should have been replaced with actual songs that fit into the context of the record. Like, I like One Right Now, don't get me wrong, but like it does not fit this whole picture. With Posty going in a more introspective direction with his more warbly vocals and downtrodden lyrics and just not as many hits on this record, I feel like that's the main reason that this record failed commercially and critically. And overall, I do think it's a very underlooked album in his catalog. And at number 2, his most recent record, his most recent record as of recording this, Austin. This album takes the same sort of washed out balladry of 12 Carat Toothache, but in a more catchy and lighter direction, which I think really helps. If you felt like you didn't have anything to hold on to with 12 Carat Toothache, you have a lot to hold on to with this record. Being 17 tracks and 52 minutes in length, there is like only one track on here that I don't like, Texas Test. But other than that, like everything else is just hit after hit after hit after hit. There's so many catchy ass rooms, so many good instrumentals, and I feel like the overall more fun, bouncy energy of this album really helps to set it above most of what he's done before. One of the main criticisms I've seen in this album is that the lyrics can kind of suck, but like, look at any other Post Malone album, he's never been a good lyricist. But there are points in this album when the dad joke lyricism really shines through when actually is funny, endearing, or just a really catchy bit of the song, like the Play That Pussy Like It's For Release on Something Real. That is like the catchiest part of that song, and I love it. Unlike the other records, I don't have a whole lot to say about this one, just because I feel like it's very simple in its nature, and it's very simple in what it's trying to achieve, and I feel like it does it in a very great, endearing, catchy, fun way. One that I would definitely recommend, but clearly it's not my favorite, as it's not at number 1. So what is at number 1? Number 1... Yeah, it'd be this one. His 2019 album, Hollywood's Bleeding, his best-selling album with his best-selling song on it. I believe the numbers do speak for themselves with this case. For the album, not fucking Sunflower. I don't like that song. This album is just hit after hit after hit after hit, and it doesn't really tone it down, like, at all. And for some looking for more variation in their pop record, that could be a downfall. But I believe that the hits on this record are catchy enough, immediate enough, and just overall good enough to warrant it being at this top spot. The moody tone setter of Hollywood's Bleeding, going into the trap banger of Saint Tropez, going into the fun bouncy track Enemies with the Baby. it's just nonstop fun from front to back. And on this record, you can see him going into a more acoustic balladry, pop rock sort of direction with tracks like Allergic and 1,000 Bad Times. And obviously, one of his biggest songs to date, Circles. This thing is 17 tracks, and there's not really a whole lot that I take issue with. My biggest gripes would be On the Road with it trying to force Meek Mill and Lil Baby again. I wish people would stop trying to put those two together. They have like no vocal chemistry. I'm Gonna Be just sounds like a fucking Happy Meal song. And then Sunflower with Sway Lee being made for the Spider-Man soundtrack, I feel like should have been just left out of this album. And it should not be one of the most streamed songs of all time. It's not even either of their best. And then Staring at the Sun featuring SZA definitely could have been more on both of their parts. I feel like this is a mid-range effort on both of their parts, knowing what they both can do individually. But yeah, all the other guests on this record and all the other songs in here just go hard as shit, like Young Thug on Goodbyes, Ozzy Osbourne and Travis Scott on Take What You Want, Future and Halsey on Die For Me. Like, I've never heard Future sing this on key and this good ever. And with this album having the best collection of hits that Post Malone has put out thus far, this is pretty much why I believe it is his #1 record. Even if you ask me a different day what my ranking would be, everything in the middle would change, but Stoney would be at the bottom and this would be at the top, because I feel like this is a perfect representation of who Post Malone is as an artist. And that is why Hollywood's Bleeding is my #1 Post Malone album. And so yeah, how would you rank Post Malone's discography? Do you disagree with any of my placements? How would you do it? Who should I rank next? What should I do? Like the video. Thank you for getting me to 100 subscribers. I am so fucking amped. I'm going to be working on the next Bad Album Mockery video. I already have the script because it was going to be the first episode of this, but I wanted to do something that I'm pretty sure would perform better, which it has, but it's kind of performed terribly in view to subscriber ratio. But hey, we got to 100. That's pretty sick. Send this video to some of your friends. Send this video to your grandma, your doctor. Send it to your gynecologist. I don't care. Let's just keep pushing those numbers. Like, subscribe, and thank you for watching. That's all I have to say. Bye.